Hi everyone, my name is Molly Hemphill and I'm the Medical Education Librarian here in the Biomed Library. I am the liaison librarian to DGSOM, so if you need any help with library resources or doing research, I'm here to help you. I have my contact information here on the slides, and these slides should also be shared with you as well. Today I'm just going to do a pretty quick overview of major library resources and services and how I can help you. I'll also do a little Lit Search demo, but also remember that I'm here for specialized one-on-one help with your literature review. So let's get started. So really quickly, I'm going to talk about how to get help from a librarian, which is me. I'm not the only librarian that can help you, but since I'm the subject librarian for medicine, I'm definitely a great first place to start when it comes to getting help. Talk about accessing library resources, including remote access. Then I'll give you some literature searching tips because this is sort of the basics when you're kind of starting off, doing a literature review and kind of seeing what's out there on your topic. I'll do a little practice in PubMed and I'll also share a few other resources as well. All right, so as I mentioned, you can get help from me, a librarian. I offer research consultations either on Zoom or in person. As I mentioned, I sit in the biomedical library. If it's also easier for me, for you to meet me at Geffen Hall, I'm happy to walk over there as well. Just let me know. Um, Feel free to email me whenever you have questions. I've listed my email here again. We do also offer a 24/7 chat service through the library. So if it's outside of normal business hours, it won't be a UCLA librarian answering your chat, but they can typically, whoever's, the chat operator can usually answer basic questions about using the library. So just really quickly, if you do want to make a consultation with me, I linked, oops. I linked my scheduler here, and this is what it looks like. So you would basically select whether or not you want to meet with me in person or online. And once you make that selection, you can see my scheduler, pick the day and the time. It really depends, which day you pick, which slots I might have available. But big reminder, if you don't see a time that works for you, please email me and we can find a mutual time on my scheduler. Okay, moving on. So, connecting to library resources, big reminder. Most of library resources are through subscriptions. So, we either pay for the databases or we pay for journal subscriptions. And in order to have full access to those, typically in this case, it's either the database itself or the full text of the article that you want to read. You'll either need to be on campus using UCLA Wi-Fi or authenticated through the VPN. And so I've linked here information to the library on the library's website for how to get the VPN. The MedNet VPN is Global Protect, so you'll have to coordinate with UCLA Health IT for that one. But you also have access to the regular UCLA VPN, which is this down here at the bottom of my screen. It's called Cisco Secure Client. This is the VPN that I use when I'm off campus, if I happen to be working from home. And it's pretty simple to connect. It's through UCLA logon. So I just wanted to show you that as well. The other thing is if you're having trouble accessing a particular article, so like the full text, and you're either on campus, the VPN, we might just not have a subscription to that journal or that volume. Definitely email me if you're having trouble with this. We can typically make a request through our interlibrary loan service, and that way we can request the article from another institution that has it. Okay, next is research guides and databases. So really important to know which databases are available for you that help you do research in medicine. So there are a few options on the MedNet homepage under the Medical References tab, which you may or may not have seen. Some of the main library resources that I like to recommend are, of course, the specialized databases. We also have clinical tools like UpToDate. Some of the databases that, well, really most of them are actually listed here. So PubMed, Embase, which is also biomedical literature, just like PubMed, PsycInfo for any sort of psych or behavioral health related topics. Web of Science, great for interdisciplinary. There's a lot on Web of Science beyond biomedical, as well as CINAHL, which is a lot of nursing and allied health information as well. And I mentioned UpToDate. So, a lot of this I like to share through a research guide. So, I've linked here the medicine research guide as well as the clinician's toolkit, which my clinical librarian maintains. This is what the medicine research guide looks like. So, basically, you have all of those journal article databases that I mentioned. If you're looking for books, this includes Access Medicine, as well as other clinical resources. There's a lot of information on this page, including me. And then I also have quick links to things like PubMed, Access Medicine, the case files collection, which you may use in your second year, as well as up to date. If you do come by the library, I also have listed our location, and so make sure that you know which hours we're open. Sometimes it fluctuates because the campus operates on a different schedule than your medical school schedule. So, and then also here we have the VPN information as well. So that's the research guide. I like to share that. All right, so in terms of doing the literature search, a lot of times I like to sort of promote this format that we call PICO. So PICO stands for patient or population, intervention or exposure, comparison, intervention or exposure, which is optional, and outcome, and then sometimes a time frame. This is a really great format to use when you're forming a clinical research question. And then once you've sort of formulated your PICO question, we can break down the elements into keywords. We can brainstorm possible synonyms and related terms, and that's ultimately how we'll structure our search strategy to go into the database to find the results that we're looking for to either answer that clinical question, or sometimes you're just doing a lit search for a project and you want to find out what's out there on my topic. Later, I'll show you in the slides how to structure the search using Boolean operators, which are essentially specialized words that I like to say that they help you tell the database what to do because the database can't read your mind. I'll make a note of controlled vocabulary. So those are mesh terms, medical subject headings. Those are used in PubMed. Definitely, if you want help with mesh, I highly recommend making an appointment with me because it can help to kind of talk through live, one-on-one. And then again, you'll run the search in the database based on whatever topic you've chosen, probably PubMed to start off with, and then you can move forward with actually reviewing the results. Okay, so an example PICO question that I have for our slide today, we'll just take a few minutes to review this. So which is better for treating fever in children, acetaminophen or ibuprofen? So we can see here, we can already start to think of like, what are the PICO elements that we're noticing in this question? So the patient or population would be children. The intervention or exposure, and then the comparison, I'm seeing acetaminophen or ibuprofen. So those are two medications that I want to compare. We're going to be applying it to children, and the outcome that we want to measure through those interventions and the comparison intervention is fever. So fever would be the outcome. All right, then we have our PICO keywords and our concepts. And so then I would start to kind of pull out, okay, my concept. My first concept is children. Second concept, acetaminophen. Third concept, ibuprofen and fever. This helps me structure like, okay, what are the keywords that I want to start to come up with to put into my search? So then once I have my main concepts, I can come up with synonyms and related terms. So for children, I can start to think of, okay, infants, toddlers, maybe just pediatrics generally. Same with acetaminophen, ibuprofen. I can pull in sort of the not generic names for the drugs. As well as fever, I can, sometimes it's the common name for the condition or the circumstance, or we can use the more medical term. Just a quick note, it's important to come up with synonyms because sometimes researchers and scholars, authors who are writing and publishing on a topic might use different words to describe the same thing. So, and since the database can't read our mind, it doesn't know that just because we put in children that we might, also mean infants. So if I have a citation that's only talking about infants and it doesn't mention the word children anywhere in the citation, I'm not going to be able to retrieve that result if I've only used the word children. So that's why we sort of diversify the search terms. All right, so how do we combine this? Now that I've solidified my concepts and I've came up with my synonyms, I want to start using Boolean operators. So and is used to combine our concepts. So children, acetaminophen, those concepts. And we use and to say both words must be in the result in order for it to be included. So as an example, we have fever, and acetaminophen. In terms of doing that search, so if I literally were to put this search into PubMed, I would only get results that fall in this middle part of the Venn diagram. So the citations, so my search results would have to have the word fever and they have to have the word acetaminophen somewhere in the citation. So like in the title or the abstract, or sometimes it's the journal and the author affiliations. Or is used for the synonyms, right? So when we came up with our synonyms, we want to connect them using or because we're giving the database options to find the concept, right? So we have in this case acetaminophen or Tylenol. And you can see here in the Venn diagram, it's not just the overlap, it's both, it's every part of the Venn diagram. So we're saying any article that has the word acetaminophen will be in my results. Any article that has the word Tylenol will be in my results. And then also, of course, some might have both, but either one, we'll take either one, either option. And that's what the database is doing when it's going through and you give it a query. It's going through and it's finding all these options and it's saying, okay, this article has acetaminophen. Let me include it in my results. This article is Tylenol. Let me include it in my results. That's how it's searching and giving you relevant citations. Okay, next, we'll put it all together. So we have our PICO keywords. We can just start off using and. So we have children and acetaminophen and ibuprofen and fever. We can add in our synonyms. And here you can see I've connected them with or. And then in the middle we have and. So this I can literally just put into PubMed. And we'll do that in just a little bit. Really quickly, I want to make note of mesh terms. So those are medical subject headings. These are essentially specific terms that we want to use in conjunction with our keywords. So you can think of keywords as any word that you can come up with in your brain to describe the concept that you're looking for. And you can come up with any of them. Controlled vocabulary is really exactly what it is. It's controlled terms to describe a given subject or topic. And mesh terms are the controlled vocabulary for PubMed. You can kind of think of mesh terms like hashtags for the citation. So when you search a hashtag on social media, you're like hashtag cats, you're going to get every post in your search results that have that hashtag. Now it's the same with mesh terms. When you search for a mesh term, so neoplasms mesh, you're going to get every citation that has been tagged with that mesh term. And for our purposes, it means that somewhere in the citation, they're going to be talking about neoplasms or cancer, right? Now, the thing to remember, and I have this here, mesh terms and other controlled vocabulary act like hashtags, but big reminder, you can't create your own. So mesh is a really great tool to use to help broaden your search because you are pretty certain that when you search for a mesh term, if a citation has been tagged with that mesh term, you can be pretty certain that it's about the topic that you're looking for. Okay, so, oops. When we put this into practice, I can combine everything that I've just described. So I have my first concept, children, and I've added in my synonyms, connecting it with and to my other topics. And I've actually added in the mesh term for acetaminophen. Now remember, I didn't make up this mesh term. I actually had to go into PubMed, and at the bottom of every PubMed screen is actually the mesh database. And I actually had to find the mesh term for acetaminophen. Acetaminophen. I think that's how you spell it. Oops. I spelled it wrong, of course. There we go. So then when I search for acetaminophen, I can see here, this is the mesh term. So this is the controlled term for this topic. It ends up being the same word. And then I can see the sort of the definition to make sure I want to use that word. You can see here, this is from a search I was doing earlier. And to actually use this mesh term, I use the search builder on the right-hand side, click add to search. And then I just copied and pasted this and I added it to the search in my slides. You can see here, same thing. Now we can try to plug this into PubMed, which we'll do right now. So I always actually have PubMed bookmarked. Of course, I'm using PubMed practically every day. Just a reminder, you want to use the UCLA library link to PubMed. You can see here it actually has a very specific ending at the URL. That will give you the link resolver so you can easily find the full text of the article when you actually decide that you want to read because PubMed actually has citations. It doesn't contain the full text of the article. So you actually have to go and grab the PDF of the article. So I can actually just grab this entire thing. That's why I like searching databases. You can have reproducible search strategies. And I search this and I can see, all right, I got 260 results. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is PubMed is great because you can also use the filters. So here on the side, we can filter results by year. I can see that going back to 1976, we have about 260 results. Of course, this might change if I'm like, okay, well, maybe I only want to find literature from the last 5 years on this topic. So I can actually just scroll the histogram to 2020, so 5 years. Crazy, 2020 was 5 years ago, but here we are. And I can see I have 43 results. Now I can keep going. I can actually also filter by article type, which is great, especially when you're thinking about finding either primary literature or secondary literature. So primary literature is often original study. So you think of the person like running the study or doing the experiment, creating the information themselves. And you can think of secondary literature as like generally our review articles. So someone who is creating similar scholarship, but they're either synthesizing or analyzing other people's primary work that they've done. So we can think of like literature review articles or more advanced reviews like systematic reviews as well. And I can actually select things like I usually like to use the example of a randomized controlled trial on the side. So let's say I want a randomized controlled trial on this topic that I just searched. I've just checked this box. And I can see there are 4 randomized controlled trials that have been published in the last year on this search that I've created. And it looks like they're not from too long ago. I guess the most recent one is from last year in 2024. And then to actually go into the citation, last part of the demo before I wrap up the video, I say, okay, maybe I want to read this. So then I can see, okay, the parts of the citation here, I have the title, which typically important. I can see that it's been assigned as a randomized controlled trial in the database, which helped me find it. These are all the people that worked on the study, and you can see their affiliations. The abstract, great place to figure out like, okay, is this something that I want to read into more deeply? And then sometimes they'll have similar articles based on your topic, the references, and then here are the mesh terms. So this is actually where the mesh terms live, like where they're actually tagged on the citation, and that's like how we end up getting them in the results. And here we actually see we actually see almost all of the concepts that we added. So acetaminophen, we have child, and then we also have fever and ibuprofen. And this, it looks like it's talking about malaria as well. All right. Lastly, remember I mentioned the UCLA library link to PubMed? This gives you the Get It at UC button. Now, if you can kind of just like pretend like that button wasn't there, you could use the JAMA full text button, which if we click that, it takes me to the full text of the article. And here we go. We can read the full text, and we can also download the PDF if we want. Now, if you could imagine neither of those full text buttons were there, you'd probably be like, how do I get the full text of the article to actually read the thing? So that's why, just in case we don't have these publisher buttons, we still have the Get It at UC button, which I can click on to take me to the online catalog, where I can also download the PDF, or this will also take me to the publisher website. Seems like nitty gritty, but at the end of the day, you are going to want to read the thing after all. So it's good to know that we generally have access to everything you probably want to read. So that's it for searching. We did the PubMed demo. And then some other tools on the slides here if you want to use. I have a Pico searching worksheet. If you feel that this resonates with you, I've sort of arranged this table so you can write out your project topic, come up with those concepts for your topic, brainstorm synonyms, and then connect them using and or, just as I talked about earlier. There's also a free form, which doesn't use the Pico. It just sort of outlines it based on general concepts. Highly recommend using a citation manager. Once you start to compile all these citations, it's really nice to have them all in one place. I recommend Zotero. Oh, the other thing is, reason why it's called Citation Manager is because you're managing citations, but it also will help you actually cite the article when you're going to write your paper or your manuscripts. So you don't even have to think about how to format in APA or AMA or whichever style you're using. And notice free, as I mentioned, and notice not free, but we do have a discount. I think it's about $90. So please, I don't want you to spend money if you don't have to. So definitely use the Zotero link and download it and check it out. And I can definitely help you with either of these citation managers if you need. Lastly, I like to include these links to a couple of synthesis matrices to kind of help you organize the literature based on what you found. And you can kind of start to connect the dots based on, all the different elements that you're starting to see from all the studies on your topic. So you can find that synthesis matrix here. And then I've also included a link to this other lovely website from the University of North Carolina. And if I'm just going to scroll really quickly. So they started to use the synthesis matrix, but what I like is that then they color coded based on sort of the major like topics that they were noticing or questions that were coming up or similar elements. And they use that to create the outline for their paper. And so if you're a visual person, maybe this will resonate with you. Um, so thank you so much. Please email me with any questions. I'm looking forward to meeting you. And best of luck with the program. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.